Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Hello and welcome into Those Were the Days, the show where we look at classic TV through with modern eyes, a nostalgic lens, a thing I came up with and now I can't remember what I said. I am your host this week, Travis, aka TV's Travis, and we are kicking off a month of educational shows. That's right. We're going to look back on the past and we're going to learn you a few things. But I can't do this alone. No. I need help. And what I need somebody who carries a calculator in a shoulder holster like Steven.
You know, I was 5% sure I wouldn't enjoy educational TV. Another 10% sure that whatever episode Travis picked was probably going to be boring to me. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm 100% sure that this show blew my mind. I think that's 115%, but I'm not good at math, so we're just going to have to go with it.
It just means you need to watch more Square One TV. Also, somebody who knows that a percent and a decimal and a fraction can all equal the same thing. It's Audie.
In the world of educational programming, the people are represented by two yet equally important groups. The serious nerds who want to really make sure you learn all kinds of cool stuff, and the funny nerds who want you to learn all kinds of cool stuff, but also while possibly making you laugh. These are their stories. Dun, dun.
Fantastic. And finally, someone who knows you never divide by zero, Amy.
1, 2, 3, 5. Eureka! That's a deep cut. If you're in the know, that's a deep cut.
Oh, we're going to get to that. So we are talking about Square One TV, which was a show that ran. It was a production of the Children's Television Workshop, which later became known as the Sesame Workshop. And it ran on PBS from January of 1987 until October of 1991. And then it went through reruns for another couple of years. And it was in a block. I remember watching it with stuff like 321 Contact. This show, it ran in the afternoons a lot here on PBS, and I gobbled it all up. But I want to know, I'm going to start with Amy. Do you remember Square One? Did you watch it?
I remember Square One. I remember this episode of Square One. I remember clearly other episodes of Square One. But watching this episode, I felt like a sleeper agent that was being activated. Parts of my brain that have not, like things that were pulled from 1989. And I'm like the percentage song. I was like, yes. No, I remember this. No, I remember this very clearly. Oh no, what's happening? Or the game show, the one couple, and I was like, wait, I remember this very clearly. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had the exact same thing happen. Like
Yeah.
there were things unlocking in my brain, and I'm like, well, that is a synapse that has not fired in 30 years.
There was this snobbish meme that went around lately, and it's, from one of these like super moms and it's like a picture of her and her kids like out in this beautiful field, and it's like kids don't form memories watching television, and I'm like, this is absolutely wrong. Like I was like, this is a core memory.
BS.
Oh, no.
Right.
Oh no.
Now, Audie, how about you? Did you grow up watching some Square One television?
I absolutely did. Like if you were listening last week, as soon as you said that, I was over here like, yes. Just like on board, ready for this. Like as soon as the music hit, da 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 da, I was like, oh my gosh. Again, unlocking core memories and stuff. And just, seeing some of the actors in here, and I'm like, wait a minute. Holy crap, you were on this? Holy crap. And I will say the one thing I missed that they didn't have this episode was Math Man.
Yeah, And we're gonna get to Math Man
Mhm.
and all of
I'm
that
sure.
here shortly. But I'm like you, the theme song has been running through my brain for a week
Mhm.
straight now. Like I'm just out walking the dog and I'm just bopping along to the Square One theme. Steven, you're a couple years younger than us. Do you remember this at all prior to watching it for this?
No, I do not, Travis. I have never once heard of this television show, and I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell all you internet people a secret. There's not a lot of shows that we watch that make me feel like my childhood was completely inadequate and left without certain types of magic. And this show has made me realize that I am incomplete as a human being that was born in the mid 80s. The fact that I don't understand or never seen this, I shame on you, mother and father, for not making sure this was in rotation in the house at all times. Because my word, I feel very left out of a very secret club that maybe wasn't secret. I was just sitting around watching Back to the Future and Spaceballs on videotape over and over when I should have been learning math from Square One TV.
So Square One TV, as I mentioned, ran from 87 to 91, and so you were just kind of a little bit too young to kind of catch it in its normal rotation. But what I loved about it was this was an era of kind of children's programming that really strove to educate and entertain, and they found such a good balance here with that. There was actually complaints early on from parents that the show was too entertaining and that kids weren't learning enough, and that was quickly squashed because the kids were showing in class in their schools that they were learning these concepts from Square One. I was one of those kids. I know that some of the math stuff that I learned early on was from Square One TV
Oh, yeah.
and then demonstrating it in class.
Yeah.
I mean, Amy's intro used the Fibonacci sequence. I know of that. I learned about that from this show. Um, and the show was broken up into kind of two halves.
Yes.
The first half was a mixture of parody game shows and sketches and little bits here and there and all sorts of mathematic related things. And they were a lot of fun because they would have, like, we saw in this episode and the game show But Who's Counting with host Monte Carlo. And that one that was basically, that setup was used many times, which is they would have the same two couples, but they would be like a different version of those two couples every time.
Yeah.
And then they would do the numbers, and you would either have to make the largest number you could or add up the biggest number that you could. They did have game shows that would involve elementary school kids from New York City, which was always kind of fun to see in especially some of the later seasons, or later episodes. They would have, and you would have like a game going on and just a room full of kids, and they'd bring a couple of them up and let them do that. You had sketches. There was recurring sketches of like commercials that were being shot, and it would be a commercial, and they would start doing, and it was just the silliest, dumbest commercial you could imagine. But it would be like 70%, and then you'd hear cut, and the guy would come in and be like 70%. That doesn't work. No, that's not flashy enough. I need something better. And so like the nerdy assistant would be like, well, we could use 7/10. That's the same thing. And so they'd swap it out, and it was to teach you the fact that these all equaled the same thing. And they would have these themes that go along with it, and I loved those. And then you had little vignettes like Math Man, which Audie brought up. And Math Man was a Pac-Man style game. And you had a little dude who, he was Pac-Man like, except he was wearing a University of Michigan football helmet for some reason. And he would just go around chomping on, and he would come up to numbers, and he would have to only eat certain types of numbers, like multiples of 3 or even numbers or whatever it was. But every time he would come up to the number, he would have to stop, and he would have 3 seconds to decide if he was going to eat it or not. Meanwhile, the evil Mr. Glitch would wait for him, which was a tornado that would just sit there and mutter and mumble until he made his decision. And Mr. Glitch was great because here's Math Man, and he's contemplating if he's going to eat the number, and you just hear while he, and then he'd decide, and he'd just be like and disappear, and then Math Man would go along do his thing. And Mathman was always hilarious. They later on actually had Gary Owen do a voice of a character in some animated stuff that was because Gary Owen had done the voice of Roger Ramjet back in the 60s. And they had a Roger Ramjet style character named Dirk Niblick of the Math Brigade. And they would have a little
Niblick of the
animated
Math
bit.
Brigade.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, excuse me, I've been activated. I have to go do math. Apparently, I have to go balance my checkbook. I'll be back. I gotta go.
It's amazing that it can just
There's
sit
another
deep
core
in your
memory.
neuron. Yeah.
Yep. They would do that. There was and they would do parodies too. Like they had their parody of Late Night with David Letterman, and it was Late Afternoon with David Numberman.
Yes.
So like just
Mhm.
super cheesy General
So
Mathpital.
good.
Yep.
Yes.
Nobody's In, which was a parody of Faulty Towers. Talk about making a deep cut in a children's
Oh,
show
Yes.
jeez.
on PBS. You're going to do a parody of Faulty Towers. Was just brilliant to me.
Nobody's In. I forgot that was the show.
Mhm.
And they would get there would be music too. We saw a song in this which was a very Motown song about percentages. But they would
From the
have
bank notes.
yeah, and they always had like a musical number in just about every episode. Some of them were very 80s. Like just the most 80s of 80s music video you could imagine. But they would also get real musicians sometimes to come on. There was an episode later on, I very distinctly remember, that had Kid and Play.
Yep.
Holy cow! House party.
And they
Mhm.
had like the Judds. There was one I just watched because one of the topics, because there would usually be a theme per episode. They might be doing Roman numerals and kind of teach you about those a little bit, or combinatorics. Combinatorics. I don't know how you pronounce it, but
Combinatorics.
combinatorics.
Yeah.
And that one actually had Dweezil Zappa.
Wow.
Was the most random. Again, kind of a deep cut. Like no kids know who Dweezil Zappa is, but he
I
was
mean,
there.
I did because my father used to say that at least he didn't name one of his Dweezil, so I did. I will say the songs in this show are great, but we can all agree that the best number-based song is the, I believe, Pointer Sisters 12 song from Sesame Street. 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
4,
the Schoolhouse
5,
Rock.
6, 7, 8. No,
Oh,
What
Oh no,
age
that
group
was
is
a
it?
with
Sesame Street. No, you're right. Yeah,
with
yeah.
the pinball machine.
Mhm.
Yes,
11,
absolutely.
12.
Oh no, that definitely is. That definitely is. But these were such good and catchy songs that they would come up with for this series just consistently. So and a lot of them got reused. There would be episodes of this that would run later on where they would take sketches from previous ones, rearrange the order, and throw them in there.
Yep.
We had in this one, I loved the sketch with the primetime television lineup.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that was so good. I don't know what impression that one dude was trying to do, but it sounded like a monotone President Kennedy delivering an address. I don't know if you picked up
Kind
on
of,
it,
yeah.
but I was like, he's definitely doing something. I don't know what it is, but I'm proud of him. You're good. Just keep going.
Now, here's a question. Did you recognize anybody you saw on the screen from anything? Steven, I'm going to start with you. I want to see if
feel
you
like I
recognize me.
recognize the main lady, but I don't
Okay.
know from what. No, I recognized the one African American lady. I recognized her face. I don't know from where. So there's a couple
Okay.
faces. I'm like, I kind of know you, but I don't know how.
All right. Amy, how about you?
Well, this particular episode had baby Yeardley Smith in it.
It did. I
Yes,
knew
it did.
that. I saw
Mhm.
that. I was like, I know
And I
her.
remembered that from back in the day. And I was glad that we got the last episode because I forgot that MathNet was usually like a 2-episode thing. But then I did remember because
They were 5-episode arcs.
they were 5.
Because it would
Back
run.
on.
It
All of
was
them?
5 episodes that would run Monday to Friday.
That's why I used to get so mad if I missed one.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
however was I going to figure it out?
I know.
Mom,
I know.
I've got thoughts about MathNet for later. Let's just keep
my
going.
stories.
Yeah,
Mathnet we get to shortly.
good.
Yeah.
But yes, baby Yeardley Smith, Audie. Or were there any of the
I'm
actors?
trying
that you
to look him
recognized?
up. The black guy.
So that is Reg E. Cathy,
Yes.
who
He is such
has-
babyface also.
he's a very, very young Reg, but he's
Uh-huh.
also he had sadly passed away a couple years ago. He
Mhm.
had one of the most buttery smooth voices you will ever hear. He
Yes.
is great, and he has had quite the career. In fact, I knew this is what I know him from is Square One Television. So much so that when I was a kid and The Mask came out, he's in The Mask. He has a small part in that.
Mm.
And I saw him in that movie and I said, that's the dude from Square One. Like that's what I knew him as. And then I've seen him in so many things. Most recently was he played Luke Cage's dad in season 2 of
Yeah.
Luke Cage.
Yeah.
And one of the few voices that can stand up to Mike Coulter and
Mhm.
like out bass Mike Coulter is Reg
Yeah.
Cathy.
I remember seeing him in House of Cards and being like, "Oh, that guy."
Yeah. Yeah,
It's just,
he
you know,
had
just made
Right.
barbecue. He was great.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I forgot that was him.
Mhm.
but no matter what I see him in, all I think of is him doing goofy math songs and like playing the announcer guy for But Who's Counting or whatever it is. There's also Larry
Mhm.
Cedar. Larry Cedar he was the one that let's see, in But Who's Counting, he was the guy that was always like, yeah, excellent, okay.
Yeah. All
Mhm.
right.
That's Larry Cedar, and he's another kind of character actor that went on to have a career. A few of them didn't much. Cynthia Darlow is the one that you're thinking of, Stephen. You've seen her. She's been in a few things. But for the most part, like Cristobal Franco and Arthur Howard were the other two guys. And they look so familiar, but they've never really done anything of note outside of this. But you can tell that they just enjoy doing this type of stuff because they're all in on it.
Mhm.
But yeah, Reg Cathy is the one I always remember from this. And then the second half of every episode would be MathNet, and MathNet is a parody of Dragnet, and it is absolutely brilliant.
Oh, good.
It stars
So
Joe
well done.
Howard as George Franklin and Beverly Leach as Kate Monday, who was in a later season, sadly replaced the character. And there's a reason why, and I want to give an explanation for that because this was a big thing when I was a kid. But MathNet is a parody of Dragnet, where instead of being for the LAPD, they are mathematicians.
Yep. To
And they
cogitate
solve
and serve.
yes, they solve minor crimes using math. And it's so good.
It's so good. It is whatever like 80% attention I was paying became 100% as soon as I heard MathNet happen because it is played straight as an arrow.
Uh-huh.
This we're glossing over early children's television a little bit. Like this era of children's television was like a playground for creativity. It was like anything you could dream of. No one was paying enough attention to children's TV. You could just do it. You just do whatever you want. There's a reason Ren and Stimpy was on Nickelodeon because no one was watching. No one had it. Like in terms of standards and practices and what's safe for kids. Like no one gave a crap. They just make TV for kids. Sell crap and crunch. You know this is good. This is what we do. And stuff like this happened. Like MathNet, about a show from the 60s of two detectives becomes a show for children about two math. I don't even know. I went downstairs yelling to Steph. I'm like, I don't know what I watched, but it's the most brilliant television I have ever seen. Anyway,
Steven, we have to find you the episodes with the Maltese pigeon.
oh gosh,
Yes.
please, I need it.
Because it's the epitome of MathNet, I feel.
Just
I mean, there's a lot
Because
of good MathNet, but that one.
every MathNet arc, like I said, would be 5 episodes, and they would run from Monday to Friday. And that would always open the same way with Kate Monday giving the Joe Friday style monotone delivery of what was going on, and then she would go into the building and she would meet with George, and they would begin everything.
But we have to talk about the very intro, which is the
No,
story
yes.
you're about to hear is a fib,
Oh,
but
man.
it's short. Because that is my dad latched onto that line so hard.
Yes.
I feel like he probably still says it, honestly.
It's so good. It's so good. I wrote down So many quotes. Everything in this entire half of the show was quotable. The problem was the gorilla was taking things a gorilla shouldn't need. I just fell out of my chair. I was just like, that's brilliant.
Uh,
And to your point, they played it completely straight. They didn't
Straight.
like make it goofy, but it was ridiculous what was going on. Now, I'm about to blow your mind though. You ready for this? The very first arc of MathNet in 1987 is the plot to The Sandlot.
What?
A kid is playing baseball with his friends, and one of them hits a home run over a fence. It lands in somebody's house, and they lose the baseball. The baseball was signed by Babe Ruth, and it was his dad's. And his dad is on a business trip, and when his dad gets back from the business trip, he's gonna murderize the kid for losing the baseball signed by Babe Ruth. I just learned that recently while I was researching the show, and I can't believe it's the plot to damn Sandlot was a MathNet episode in 1987, like 5 years before that movie came out.
Oh my god.
It's amazing.
Please tell me David Mickey Evans was a writer on this show so I can feel like maybe he just originated it here. Oh gosh, that's amazing.
But it blows your mind when you learn, like when you watch MathNet, how ridiculous it is, but how funny it is too. Now, I can't talk about MathNet without the controversy of the replacement of Kate Monday with Pat Tuesday.
I think I talked about it
was-
last week. It was
Yeah,
the
you did.
second most devastating thing that happened to
Mhm.
my young television life.
There was a reason for it. So MathNet was actually filmed in LA. And but the rest of Square One TV was filmed in New York, where Children's Television Workshop was. And a couple of years in, so it would have been about 1990, they decided to move MathNet from LA to New York in order to have it closer to things and to cut down some of the production cost. And unfortunately, Beverly Leach, who played Kate Monday, just couldn't afford to make that move. And so she's even said in interviews that like the producers called her up and they were like, she's like, the producer was crying and I was crying and I didn't want to leave, but I just couldn't, like, she couldn't swing it and they couldn't afford to pay her to move. So they had to write her character off. Joe Howard was moved. And so the character of George Franklin and his wife, who you never see, she's just mentioned throughout it, like every episode, but you never see her.
We're
George
just gonna nip
moved.
that. We're gonna nip that. Any romantic tension that could be read
Yep.
into it,
Mhm.
just get rid of it
Yeah.
immediately.
Yes.
We're not. This is not that show.
And
it could have
so
been if
they
it
brought
wanted
in,
to be. It could have
Yeah.
been that show
So then-
easy.
so they created a second character, Pat Tuesday, who, to her credit, was not bad. It just, she was no Kate Monday, and so that was a big bummer for the show.
Mhm.
Also, a special guest that would appear in like 4 MathNet episodes was their chief, Thad Green, played by James Earl Jones.
Oh my word.
Oh, yeah.
A Sandlot connection right there.
Yep, there you go.
Dang.
And like the crimes that they would do was, again, those the gorilla stealing stuff, which is such a the first episode of that is great because they go to the grocery store and you got like the grocery store manager is all nervous and can't figure out what's going on, and finally says, yeah, he ran out the back, and they pan over and there's just a cutout of a gorilla on the back wall where he ran out of the building. But yeah, the Maltese pigeon is
So
one of my
good.
favorites because that is
So
where I
good.
learned about the Fibonacci sequence.
Eureka.
And I mentioned carrying a calculator in a shoulder holster because they do. George
Yeah.
Franklin does. And there are multiple times during the run of MathNet that he pulls his calculator and holds it like a pistol to kick in a door
Yes.
and comes
Yes, he does.
busting into the room, calculator raised.
Mm-hmm.
Complete, like it's nothing out of the ordinary. They have SWAT team with them and he still does this. It's so good.
I have a memory of them like doing math, like both of them doing math on their calculators and looking at each other and then doing the nod and then going, like not saying
Yep.
anything, but they're just doing numbers and then go. And
It's just a brilliant, that's how you do parody. It's how you
Yeah.
do parody. And you make it ridiculous like this, and like as a kid, I just latched onto it because it was
It was so
so.
because it was serious. I was so in it. I was like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
figure this out. I'm gonna do math and I'm gonna figure it out.
Yep.
This just
Now,
everything about this made me so happy. The acting that they put in, the budget was high. There's one scene, the non-spoken, like anybody act when you say words. It's when you got to just sit there. That's where the magic is. And there's at one point where they're talking about it could be two gorillas, and Joe frankly looks around. He's like, "Yeah, it could be two gorillas." And he looks at everybody, and they're all staring. And then he goes, "What does that mean?" Like he just has this like real. He's smiling at everybody like they cracked it. Then he realized he didn't know what anyone was talking about. He's like, "What? What is that all about?" And I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle this episode,
oh,
and I don't even know. There's just so much in it. If you are listening to this show right now and you didn't do your homework, I'm telling you, your life will be enriched. Just go.
Yeah.
it
All right. I will
it
say though,
honestly will.
I will say that like the math in this episode is solid, but I understand that they're just trying to show you the easy way to figure out 10%, but don't tip somebody 10%. That's rude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
this was definitely
They were like,
back
this
in the
was
day tipping.
this
Yeah.
was 1987, 88. Back then, a 10% tip wasn't considered rude.
and it was
And
the best, and the
10%
best
tip
is
so
that
she won't know, so she'll know we're not cheapskates.
skates. And we've been here for 3 hours, so she's earned it.
Oh no.
Kids,
Yeah.
she's making 27 cents an hour. What are you
Also, I'm
doing?
Interest
pretty
rates were
sure that
high
guy
in
said,
87.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure he said he ate 4 hamburgers and it cost him $14.
14.
So,
14
Yeah.
something, yeah.
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't get a hamburger for that
Now I'm
anymore.
sad. Thanks, Travis.
No. No.
But
maybe there's an episode about inflation. It's fine. We'll learn all
one
about it.
one bit that we didn't get in this episode, and I wish we had, was "Oops," brought to you by Erasers. Don't make a mistake without one.
Without one.
Mhm.
And it would be there would just be an easel sitting there, and so one of the actors would come out and they would give like a quick backstory of who they were in history, and it'd be like, and on that fateful day they made one tiny mistake, and they would do a simple mathematics problem, but they would get
Mhm.
it wrong, and then you would get cut to and they would say, and here are the results of that one tiny mistake, and it would be some old like stock footage of like a train going over a bridge and then the bridge just collapsing,
Collapsing.
No.
or
Oh,
like one of the like a plane trying to take off. It's the plane that's got like 47
yeah,
stacked
wings
up wings, and then it
that
just all
fall.
collapses. They
Yeah.
would show that, and then it'd be like, oh, wait a minute, and then they would redo the problem and get it right and be like, this could have all been avoided. And
Oh my
it was such a
gosh.
good running gag. And I watched Amy once again reactivate. Like,
Guys, I was really good at math, and I blame this show. I was really good at math until geometry, like honors level geometry, my sophomore year of high school, and then I wasn't good at math anymore. But I had to take a math class in college, so I took statistics because fine. And I love statistics because I like math. Like this show is why I like math. So I took statistics because that's fun numbers. You know what I mean? Like those are numbers that mean things. Great. I got the flu finals week and
Ooh.
I missed my statistics final.
Ooh.
But she was this ancient old lady, and so I had gotten 100 on literally everything, and I think she thought that she just lost my final. So I just got an A without ever taking the final.
Oh, nice.
Statistically, I would have
Well
done
done.
very well, so it's fine.
Yeah, and I mean, this show was just great. It ran until 91, and it was shortly before or at the time that Ghost Rider was starting to get made, that Square One fell off, and the reason for it was there was a change of management with Children's Television Workshop, and the new people that were running it were putting their money into Ghost Rider, and it cost that budget was a lot more, and they started losing budgeting for Square One, and it ended. But Ghost Rider is another one that
When I
we
wanted to
might
be a writer.
Yeah,
I
we
just wanted a
might
felt
not get
tip
to
pin and a
The
necklace.
Children's Television Network is why I am the human I am today, like pretty universally.
trust me, Ghost Rider is coming up on this show at some point.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just gonna say that right
yeah.
now because
We'll shoehorn it in.
I was just so
there's
jealous of their
another.
handwriting on that show. I just wanted a thick black pen in that handwriting, and I knew
Well,
I could
honestly,
accomplish anything.
if you took that long to write anything, your handwriting could be good too.
Yeah, if you
I'm-
actually wrote it like it's a piece of art that people need to read
Yes.
on the 480i screen, then yeah,
Mhm.
probably write really well.
The only bummer about doing this show right now was there are no good transfers left that I can find of it online. We watched it on YouTube. Some wonderful soul has put a bunch of episodes up there, so they're all over YouTube. You can watch them, and they're great. But they were definitely recorded on a VHS tape off of PBS in 1988.
Yeah.
Maybe during a
in a
rerun in
closet.
like 94, and then they've sat in a closet for
So there
25
was one
years.
part that got a little bit. It was fine.
Oh yeah,
You get some audio issues. There's a couple episodes that I really wanted to do, but then they would lose tracking like
the
partway
tracking
through
was
it.
at the bottom of
Yeah,
this
at the
one
bottom.
almost the whole time, just scrambly. Yeah.
So the quality is going to vary from episode to episode, but honestly, they're really worth watching. Now, here's a question that I have for the parents on the panel tonight, which is, would you show your kids Square One? Starting with Audie. Would you show the boys Square One? Do you think that technical issues aside, do you think it would capture their attention enough, or do you think that programming is so different today that even something like this might not work?
I'd probably show it to them to see what they think, but I'm willing to bet it wouldn't capture their attention that much because this is one of those shows where, yes, I remember watching it back in the day and being entertained by it. I think I'm more entertained by it now, getting so much more of the jokes that are higher aimed at the parentals that are sitting there next to the kid on the couch watching it with them. But I might give it a try and see what they think.
Okay, and
Before
Steven,
packing
same
it.
question. Do you think Sam would enjoy this at all, or do you think he'd get bored with it pretty
The
quick?
landscape of children's entertainment is so different. Like when
Mhm.
we were kids, when it came on, the TV was how you got media. That was it. That was the only place it
Mhm.
was, and it was there when it was there, and it was gone when it was gone. Like nowadays, I feel like I could sit him down and be like, "Watch Square One with me," and it would be like, "Can I just play ABC Mouse on my iPad, or some of these other
Mhm.
toy games that he's got for education that way?" Like it's a different world because I've thought about that a lot. Like, how do I get him to watch this cool stuff? And the only reason I watched it because it was the only thing on. Like the only reason I watched Back to the Future and the
Right.
Goonies and stuff is because my parents had those tapes, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday, and there's nothing on, so I'm gonna watch what's on these
Mhm.
tapes. Or they'd sit me in front of those tapes and be like, "Yeah, enjoy this great thing." So I wish he could get into something like this, but I think we're just too far. We're too far gone for it. The kids have too many other options.
Well, I think
And I
it's
wouldn't-
just because of the format. It's an old looking
Sure,
show, and the
yeah.
kids are not going to get into
Yeah.
it. There's so much other, and there's really good quality educational stuff that my kids are super into. Like I talked about, like at the end after recording, Number Blocks is this super awesome counting show on Netflix that's done by some British animation thing. Dude, if you have small kids, watch Number Blocks. They will learn math super great, super easy. Like my 6-year-old 2 years ago in preschool at the school, like we were doing stuff over stupid Zoom calls because of COVID, and its teachers were like, "How the heck does he know this?" Like, well, actually watched this one kid's show that actually teaches him stuff, and
Oh
he's
yeah.
learning.
We
You know.
watched the crap out of Letter Factory when Sam was in
Hmm.
preschool. There's this Letter Factory show, and they learn about the sounds of the letters. So it's
Or
not that it's not they can't learn this way. It's just this is old.
Mhm.
I tell you, you
Yeah.
make Square One
Mhm.
again in a
Yes.
quality in a format that is up to today's standards. I'm telling you guys, if they wrote a MathNet movie right now in the vein of Airplane, but with math, I'd be all over that. I'd get tickets. I'd go see it at the theater. I would be all in. Like I'm telling you, Square One just,
Well,
the revival can come. I'm here for it.
You could do that, but they've got practically that with what is it? There's a kids show where they're all like officers in this super natural type of learning environment, like Odd Squad or
Oh
something.
yeah. Odd
Hmm.
Squad. I know what you're talking about.
So,
Okay.
there's stuff that's already there. So, I would love to see Square One updated and see what that would look like now. Absolutely. But there's pieces of it that's already all over the place anyways. So, you know,
Mhm. Amy, I can hear you vibrating from here. You
I
have
just, I
something you
love
want to
it.
say.
No, I don't. I love this show so much.
It was it really it's both a product of its time and ahead of its time in a lot of ways because
mhm,
Hmm.
it was the type of educational show that there was a long stretch between and I mentioned like 321 Contact or Mr. Wizard is another show that would have been roughly this era, actually probably pre
yeah.
Square One.
Yeah.
But 321 Contact would have been around this time. I'm trying to think of some others. Beekman's World would have been similar to this time, maybe a little
Mhm,
bit after it. And then it felt like there was this long stretch where like educational shows either went too dry or like lost the plot and
mhm.
weren't able to balance that education and entertainment type of thing that shows like this did. But we've come back around and we're getting new shows that can do that now. So I'm with you. I'd love to see like a revamped new version of Square One. Get some newer songs, songs in more current styles because a lot of these were very 80s style songs. Although there's a great one with Bobby McFerrin came on and did a song at one point, and that's a lot of fun too. I think too. I feel like instead of having it be a half-hour show, you just break it up into the segments. You put out the songs and you make those available for kids to be able to listen to. And some of the segments that you would have, maybe a couple of them at a time, or like YouTube would be perfect for but who's counting, and just have
Mhm.
Yeah.
that sketch and it's 5 minutes long. Or
I'm embarrassed at how into doing that game show I was. They were like, "Get your pencil and paper," and I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm here. I'm ready. I'm gonna get this number. It's gonna be so big. I'm very excited.
I wasn't
I've
I
got
into
will.
it
this."
until I watched them play and I was like, "Oh, snap, this game's more complicated than I thought. I could play this with like I could get some dice and play this with friends and we'd have a good time. This would be
Mhm,
great."
I
mhm.
played the
Yeah,
first round and I was exactly like the winning couple without looking at it at all. And I was like, holy crap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. I
they
remember
did.
now. I now remember that I'm pretty sure I had a notebook, like especially for MathNet because it was 5 days. So I'm
Hmm.
gonna need to take notes because this
Oh
was
yeah.
very important.
Well, and MathNet was awesome too because it ended every episode on a cliffhanger,
Yes.
and they got increasingly more dramatic from Monday to Thursday, and then they would resolve everything on a Friday. So we saw the Friday episode
Yeah.
of that story
Mhm.
arc, and yeah,
We
but
don't
like
have any
the game
reports of a
shows.
gorilla driving cars around. Oh my god.
Yeah, but he could just take that head off and put on a coat and nobody would know. And he's like, "You're right.
The
He's
thing
good
the
at
other
The
math. He's not
Hey,
good at other
yeah
the other
things."
part that
the
broke me was when Yeardley Smith goes, "Having a guy read your rights on top of a Hollywood sign is threatening." Because they were like, he only gets angry when threatened, and I'm like, what am
the
I
what
Yeah.
watching? I
the
just
line that
couldn't.
killed me was right before. He shouldn't be there. It's against the law. So is robbing stores.
So good.
the very first episode, Kate walks in, sits down. It's the baseball one, and George is like, "Yeah, was it Martha? Martha and I went to a
Yeah.
Dodgers game
Martha.
last night." And Kate looks up, and then she's like, "The Dodgers were in Cincinnati last night." He goes, "Yeah, didn't have any trouble finding parking. You should come with us next week. You want to come with us to a baseball game? Won't have any trouble finding parking." Like it's just the most random.
It's so good.
George George is George frankly makes MathNet. He
Yeah.
makes it
Yeah.
work.
Yes, his
Um,
deadpan ability is just something else. Him hanging off that ladder with the gorilla. I want a merit badge for climbing, or no,
No,
for
merit badge for
sure-footedness.
sure-footedness.
Yeah.
I didn't get
sure-footedness,
one for ladder
not for
climbing
climbing
though.
ladders.
Or when they come up with their radius, and he's like, "Well, 20% of that circle is in the Pacific Ocean." She's like, "That's right. They wouldn't put the house there. Correct. Because it would sink.
The other thing they're
He's going to
they're
get
about
the
to,
whole thought.
they're about to shoot the
Mhm.
gorilla with the tranquilizer. They're like, no, he could fall. If we don't do it, he could not fall and kill George. I'm like, oh my
Yep.
god.
And this was like peak Coco the gorilla time,
Yeah.
which is why I remember this episode and the gorilla and his doll so clearly, because
Oh,
this
yeah.
was peak Coco's
Yeah.
kittens time.
Oh yeah, reading Rainbow and stuff. Coco's
Yeah.
kittens.
Coco's kittens.
Mhm.
Coco like the
This
ones without tails.
Mm-hmm.
I know
This
this at
was
age 41. Very useful information.
You're right. It does bury
Thanks.
itself deep into your brain.
Sure is there.
Mhm.
It's got
Yeah.
its own
and
special
it stays
neurons that
there
lead
too.
straight to it.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They had a segment. They would do a game show called Close Call. It was about estimation.
Estimation.
So it'd be like Price is Right.
Oh my gosh, this show's brilliant.
So many good ones. There was an episode I remember watching that did a laugh-in style joke wall.
Mm.
And they were I almost went with that one, but it also just I had to make sure I found one that focused on and had Reg E. Kathy
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
prominent, because I needed that in the episode that we watched. So
I'm a sucker for a
but yeah,
joke
this
wall. You know that. I'll watch that
oh
episode.
yeah,
I'll go find it.
it's worth it. Yeah, this show just boy, it took me back to being a kid watching PBS. One of the videos on YouTube actually begins with the very tail end of 321 Contact, like the last like 30 seconds of it, and the song. I didn't know what it was. It was just a picture. It was a picture of a shark outside of like a shark cage, and the ending music from 321 Contact, and that was all I had for context clues, and I knew exactly what it was. And then it rolled into square one, and I just this was so much fun to go back and look at and kind of see, like, this was the educational stuff we had growing up. This was the kind of
Mhm.
things. And Steven, I'm sorry that you didn't have it as a kid, but
Just
hey, now you've got all of it and you can watch it whenever you want.
I learned math. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't know what a factor of a number was. Like, you know how long it's been since I thought about that? Probably sixth grade
Mhm.
math, maybe.
Mhm.
And with me, Amy, you and I are very opposite in that if math information goes in, it just dumps right back out the other side after the test.
Sure.
I don't care. And I was like, oh snap, that's what that means. I learned something today. I was like embarrassed, but no, it's good. It's good.
Now you'll be able to understand it when Sam brings it home from
Yeah,
school.
I'll be like, hey, you know what? I know what factors are when it comes to numbers.
Yeah, and a prime number has only two factors, the
That's
number
right.
and one.
Itself
One
in
and
one.
something.
We're literally in the middle of that now with my 9-year-old. So I was just like, ooh.
And by the way, that sketch, like, again, it had some great jokes. Like when
Mhm.
she sits down, she's like, "So can somebody give me a hand?" And they just all start clapping. She's
Yeah, oh, that was
like,
so
"All right."
good.
The 8 is enough joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just all those jokes, just rapid fire.
Mhm.
It was a ton of fun. I'm really glad that we got to educational shows, because when educational shows was chosen, I was like, all right, yep, it's square one. Like, it took me about 30 seconds to decide that
I'm
this was
glad
going
you
to be the
picked
one.
it, because this was one of 2 for me, and so that did go ahead and take it off my plate, so I had an easier time.
Also, a thing that I learned that I will never not know because of Square One TV is the episode that had Kid and Play, because they do a song about they bought a house and they want to have a party that night, but the house is trashed, so they got to clean it up and paint the floor, because that's what you do, you paint the floor.
Of
You
course.
gotta
And
paint
so
the
they needed to
floor.
figure out the square footage of the floor to know how much paint to buy. So that is how I learned that a quarter is 1 inch in diameter, because he starts off saying, well, a quarter is an inch. So we can just, and he's like laying down quarters all the way across the floor before he gives up. And then I learned that an adult male's foot is roughly 12 inches long,
Mhm.
because they try using that. And then he's like, well, I'm 6 feet tall and your arm span is about the same as your height. So he uses that to and they were estimating and finding the area of a square.
Mhm.
And I learned all that, and it's stuck in here and it will never go
Fingertip to
away.
fingertip is close to your height, which is a thing that runs in my head.
Yes. Yes, because I just watched that, and it is exactly that. It is straight up early '90s kid and play rap.
Wow.
Oh, so good. So definitely go on YouTube. We have a link in the show notes from last episode for where you can find these. Definitely go watch them. It's so much fun. And Steven, you got a lot of catching up to do.
I do. Yes, I do, and I will, because this is so good.
Plus MathNet. You need to watch the Maltese Pigeon. If
Oh, yeah.
nothing else in MathNet, the Maltese Pigeon, but just take in all the MathNet you can.
Yeah, I'm all down for the big budget remake of any MathNet episode. Like, just please make it happen. Put Key and Peele in it or something. I don't care. Just have it be a thing.
I could go for that.
Right?
So,
Dang.
so as we continue on with educational shows this week, Audie, what have you got for us next week?
Okay, so I know what Amy's gonna do because she put it in her notes.
I did.
I was like, dang it, way to take that one. Square One would have been one I would have picked for sure. And I was looking through, I was trying to find something. I was like, that's okay. That's okay. 3, 2, 1, contact. I only know the theme song. I never watched the dang show. I just remember the song. So I decided let's just go right to it and do Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Oh gosh,
Ooh.
I'm in.
I'm gonna
invoke
do
the name of Mr. Rogers on me.
Oh,
because
yeah.
Love
there's
that
some
man.
of it that's actually on Amazon Prime right now. So we'll do season 7, episode 7. Daniel sleeps away from home.
Oh man, I'm so in.
Excellent.
That is like
So
I
we're
have
gonna
like
have
a
some fun.
list of people I have on pillars, and he is like right up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he's dead, so he can't
Oh.
ruin it, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not gonna discover
Yeah.
more.
I don't think he. I mean, even if he wasn't,
Even if he wasn't, it'd be safe.
the thing that sticks with me, and we'll talk about it all next week. But the thing that sticks with me was that, he got a letter from a parent of a child who was blind, who enjoyed the show, and knew that he had fish, but was worried that the fish weren't being fed. And so that was why after that point, every time he fed the fish, he said he was feeding the fish.
Oh my gosh. Just they don't make human beings like that.
They don't.
They
No,
don't.
they don't. They don't. And we'll definitely. Oh boy.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna
can
talk about
already
it.
feel
Right.
Yeah, I'm already feeling what next week is going to do to me.
Yeah.
So this will be quite a bit of fun. But yeah, that is so next week, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, season 7, episode 7. It's on Amazon Prime,
Mhm.
so you can watch it. Good quality. So it'll be a step up in
Eh.
quality from our Square Ones.
It's a quality. They definitely didn't get it from the most pristine recording. It aged a little bit whatever they captured, but it's watchable for sure. It's good.
The tracking isn't going to go halfway through on the VHS, and then all of a sudden
don't
the
think so.
last 5 minutes of the show are going to sound like this. So that's okay.
The sound goes first. That's the way those
Yeah.
tapes work.
Mhm.
The video
It's
might be
exactly how it
there,
goes.
but you can't understand anything.
But that was Square One television. It's just a piece of my childhood, all wrapped up into a neat, tidy 30 minutes. And definitely worth watching. If for nothing else than just seeing some faces, learn a little math too while you're at it. Remember that a percent and a decimal and a fraction all equal the same thing. So next week, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Until then, for Amy, for Stephen, for Audie, I am Travis saying good night and learn a little more math. All right. It's good for you. I had no damn